I might have said somewhere else that I'll be covering Hazel next, but plans change. Now we're going to cover Shiso. Like every character other than Saffron, you unlock Shiso after you beat him in the 4th world or beyond. Besides his base execute kit, there's an unlockable kunai kit that's obtained from getting the neutral ending with Shiso. And if you unlock the High Noon skin by getting one of the other 2 endings, or by getting the Not Even Close Baby achievement. This achievement is a bit of a pain to get. It basically amounts to finding a way to interrupt the boss's execution, most likely through flame tiles or poison. With the execute kit, Shiso's starting weapon is called the Linchpin, and his starting spells are called Orbital Beam, Step Slash, Align, and Claw Trap. He doesn't start with any artifacts. Execute Shiso has 800 starting HP and 3 starting max mana. Shiso's starting spells aren't too good, but they work for what he's trying to do. Orbital Beam and Step Slash will be your main forms of damage early on. Orbital Beam fires 4 shots fairly quickly, with each shot breaking the tile it hits. Step Slash is a fairly simple attack that hits in a 2x3 rectangle. Align and Claw Traps are really bad. Align fires a projectile that teleports an enemy 4 tiles away. I find that it's usually worthless, although it can be useful when rescuing hostages. Claw Traps is one of the worst spells in the entire game. 2 Claw Traps are fired on random tiles on the enemy's side, and if they land, the enemy will be rooted for 4 seconds. Neither of these spells do any damage. The shining star of Execute Shiso is his weapon, the Linchpin. The Linchpin costs no mana to use, and it deals damage equal to half your current money. Shiso starts with 80 Sarah, which is the name of the money in the game, but each shot costs 3 Sarah to fire, so your basic attack will do just under 40 damage a shot. From a purely damage-based viewpoint, this alone makes the Linchpin one of the strongest weapons, but it gets better. If you kill an enemy with the Linchpin, you get 10 Sarah back. This means you can take 3 shots at something before you enter the red, so don't be afraid to bust out the figurative big guns by using the literal small gun. And remember, you're not just dealing around 40 damage per shot, but half your money. It doesn't take long before the Linchpin puts all your other spells to shame, and by the late game, don't be surprised if every normal encounter comes down to one-shotting the enemy with the revolver. The problem with Shiso is his early game. Before you can destroy things with the Linchpin, you'll be fighting an uphill battle. The first thing you'll want is offensive presence, so I recommend devoting one of your focuses to either Glimmer if you're feeling lucky, or Convergence or Anima for a safer time. Once you're no longer helpless, you should try getting some of the better rooting spells to make your aiming easier. My favorites are Amalgam and Boomerang from Convergence, and Wreath from Hearth. Although, once you get past the early game, you'll find you won't really need any spells, so long as you're good with aiming with the Linchpin. Another big problem with Execute Shiso is getting artifacts. Since you'll be hoarding money for your Linchpin damage, you likely won't want anything to do with the shop. This makes artifacts a bit hard to come by. Nevertheless, let's go over some. Credit card and paper wallet just give money, which means they give you more firepower, while Mining Rig gives 3 Sarah at the end of every battle for a slower build-up. One big thing you want to keep your eyes open for is anything that applies Fragile. Shiso does monstrous damage after a while with Linchpin, and the gun's slow but powerful nature make it seemingly custom made to abuse the status ailment. Magnifying Glass, which boosts the damage modifier Fragile has, and Glass Flute, which applies a stack of Fragile on each enemy at the start of battle, are pretty clear go-tos. There's also Glassified, which is a single shot that sets Fragile 3 times. If you're confident, you can forego aiming altogether with Showdown, which applies a stack of Fragile on all enemies as well as yourself. This combos nicely with the many spells that are boosted when you have Fragile, such as Limit Break. Finally, Magic Claw has good range and damage while also inflicting the ailment. Next up is Kunai Shiso. His weapon is called Knife Trick, and he trades 3 of his spells for Kunai, Collect Ring, and Double Take, while keeping Claw Trap. Once again, he starts with no artifacts. He still has 800 max HP, but he loses 1 starting max mana, as well as some money. Knife Trick isn't really a weapon. It acts similarly to the potion spells. You go to the tile where the knife lands, and you get a Kunai spell in your deck. The Kunai will always land on the tile you use Knife Trick on, so this really just amounts to standing still for a bit and getting a Kunai spell. It costs 1 mana to use though, so you can't spam it as much as you think, at least in the beginning. A single Kunai on its own doesn't do much for you, and Double Take, which adds 2 Kunai spells to your deck, won't do much more. In case you were wondering, Claw Trap is also still bad. The reason you're going to run this kit is that you start out with the Collect Ring. When cast, the Collect Ring isn't a very good spell, but every 2 seconds it's in your active hand, it will generate a kunai spell. Kunai only do 40 damage per cast, but they cost no mana to cast, and they come out almost immediately. The hope is to start with the Collect Ring in your active hand, burn through the rest of your spells, and then rain knives on your enemies. Aside from the fouling spells you should always be picking up, Kunai Shiso comes with the only spell he really needs with the Collect Ring. What you'll really want to keep your eyes open for are the kunai artifacts. Shadow Toxin, which makes each kunai apply poison, and Acupuncture, which makes each kunai apply fragile, are fairly common and really soup up your knives. There's also the incredibly powerful but the incredibly rare Ninjutsu. Ninjutsu makes it so that landing a kunai adds a kunai to your deck. This pretty much removes the need to ever reshuffle. There is a 4th kunai modifying artifact in Grip Tape. This one is actually really bad. On paper it makes kunai stronger, but it removes the thing that actually makes kunai so powerful, being their non-existent mana cost. Don't pick it up. Aside from those, there are also some artifacts which will just give you kunai, such as Knife Belt and Long Sleeves. One thing you'll want to be careful about is reshuffling. The kunai the Collect Ring generates won't be lost, so they'll be reshuffled into your deck just like your normal spells. Instead of casting all your spells and then throwing out kunai, they'll be mixed together, which creates awkward situations, at least for me. Overall, I still think Shiso is my favorite character in the game. I prefer Execute Shiso to Kunai Shiso, mostly because of luck. From my experience, it's much easier to find the offensive spells needed to get the ball rolling with Execute Shiso, than it is to find a kunai artifact that Kunai Shiso needs about just as much. But both versions are very fun to play as. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. I'm not sure what the next character I'm going to be doing is, or even if the next video will be another One Step from Eden video, but I hope you'll stick around for whatever it is.